September 14th, 1943, 11:47 a.m., Monte Cassino foothills. The air tastes like wet stone and charcoal, not the sharp sting of fresh smoke, but something older, residue from a fire that burned days ago and left its fingerprint in the rubble. Corporal Daniel Rourke crouches inside what used to be a barn. Half the roof is gone. One wall leans at 40 degrees, held up by nothing but habit. The rafters are black, skeletal. Through a crack, where the mortared stone has broken away, he can see the valley road below. Dust hangs over it, no wind to clear it, just suspended particles catching the late morning light. 200 yards behind him, the 36th Infantry Division is dug in. Waiting. Orders haven't come. They won't come for hours. Rourke knows this. He's been in Italy long enough to understand the rhythm of command, the delay between observation and action, the distance between what needs to happen and what gets authorized. He isn't supposed to be here. Battalion doctrine is clear. No forward positions in unstable structures. Collapse risk. Exposure. No radio line. If the barn comes down, no one will know where to dig. But Rourke has been counting shadows for the past 20 minutes. 18 men, Italian infantry, moving through the olive groves in 2-man intervals, using the natural folds in the terrain to stay low. They're flanking. The road below, the one his unit will use to resupply tonight, is about to become a kill box. He shifts his weight. The floor creaks. Dust falls from the broken rafters in a thin stream, catching the light like ash. His M1903 Springfield rests across his knees, 60 rounds in the pouch at his hip. The metal is cold, familiar. He's fired this rifle 500 times in training, 43 times in combat. He knows its weight, its pull, the way the stock kicks back into his shoulder. The stone wall is cold against his cheek. He presses his eye closer to the crack. The shadows are closer now. 15 yards from the roadside ditch. They're setting up. One man crouches near a low stone marker, adjusting something Rourke can't see. Another kneels behind a clump of wild grass, unrolling what might be wire. His breath fogs briefly against the stone, then disappears. Protocol says wait. Report through proper channels. Let command handle it. That's the doctrine. That's the structure. The machine works when every man stays inside his assigned function. Rourke knows this. He's read the field manuals. He's sat through the briefings. The system exists for a reason. Individual initiative creates chaos. Unauthorized action compromises the chain. But the convoy doesn't know it's being hunted. The Italian soldiers are almost in position now. Another 2 minutes, and they'll be set. The road will belong to them. Any vehicle that rolls through after dark will be torn open before the driver knows what hit him. Supplies, ammunition, medical kits, all of it burning in the ditch, while the men 200 yards back wait for resupply that never arrives. Rourke's finger rests along the trigger guard. Not on the trigger, not yet. He can still choose silence. He can pull back, crawl through the rubble, make it to the tree line, and report what he's seen. By the time the message reaches battalion, by the time reconnaissance confirms it, by the time artillery gets authorization to fire, it'll be too late. The Italians will have moved, or the convoy will already be rolling. The stone is cold. His breath is steady. The valley is quiet, except for the faint rustle of olive branches 200 yards down. Would you have pulled the trigger? Daniel Rourke grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, third son of a railroad mechanic. His father worked on turbines, massive steel drums that turned coal into motion, heat into pressure, stillness into speed. By the time Rourke was 14, he could disassemble a pressure valve blindfolded. Not because anyone asked him to. Because understanding how things worked was the only language that made sense. He learned to see machines as logic problems: input, output, tolerance, failure point. A turbine didn't lie. It either held pressure or it didn't. A bearing either wore smooth or it seized. There was no gray area, just metal, friction, and time. When he enlisted in 1942, the drill instructors at Fort Benning noticed something. Rourke didn't rush. Other recruits treated rifle maintenance like a checklist. 15 minutes, done, move on. Rourke treated it like calibration. He cleaned his M1903 Springfield the way he once calibrated pressure valves. Slowly, checking for wear patterns invisible to most eyes. Running his thumb along the bolt face to feel for burrs. Testing the trigger pull 7 times before he was satisfied. He counted things. Steps between cover points. Seconds between mortar impacts. The rhythm of enemy patrols. It wasn't nerves, it was translation. The battlefield, to Rourke, was a system with moving parts. If you understood the system, the timing, the spacing, the predictable intervals, you could predict the break. You could see where the pressure would fail before it happened. He didn't seek glory. He sought function. His letters home mentioned weather and food. Rain in North Africa. Dust in Sicily. Bread that tasted like sawdust. Never combat. His younger brother wrote back asking about battles, about Germans, about what it felt like to shoot someone. Rourke's responses were 2 paragraphs long. We moved supplies yesterday. Roads are rough. Tell Ma I'm eating fine. He had a habit of rubbing his thumb along the stock of his rifle when thinking. A gesture borrowed from years of checking smoothness in machined metal. The wood was walnut, finished with linseed oil. Over time, the spot where his thumb rested had worn lighter than the rest. A small oval of polished grain. Fellow soldiers called him Quiet Dan, not because he was shy. He spoke when spoken to. He answered questions. But he only volunteered information when the math was done. When he'd counted the variables and reached a conclusion that couldn't be ignored. In a poker game outside Salerno, he folded 13 hands in a row, then went all in on the 14th. He won. Someone asked how he knew. Rourke said, "You blink when you're bluffing." He'd been counting blinks. No one thought he'd be the one to defy orders. Heroes in the movies were loud. They gave speeches. They charged first. They had square jaws and confident voices, and they never hesitated. Rourke hesitated constantly. He recalculated. He watched. He measured twice. He was the last person anyone expected to break protocol. But systems break when the variables change faster than the structure can adapt. Rourke understood that. He'd seen turbines fail not because the metal was weak, but because the pressure exceeded the design tolerance. The machine didn't choose to fail. It simply couldn't hold what it was being asked to hold. Standing in the ruins of that barn, watching 18 Italian soldiers move into ambush position, Rourke wasn't thinking about heroism. He was thinking about timing, about input and output, about the convoy that would roll down that road in 8 hours, unaware that the system had already shifted. He rubbed his thumb along the walnut stalk. The wood was smooth, worn, familiar. And then he made his calculation. The valley road below Rourke's position has a designation: Supply Route Amber. 12 miles of packed dirt and gravel connecting the 36th Infantry Division to the ammunition depot at Caserta. It doesn't look like much. Just another Italian country road, lined with stone markers and olive trees, winding through terrain that rises and falls like a tired heartbeat. But it's an artery. Every 48 hours, a convoy runs it. 6 trucks, sometimes 8. GMC CKW2 1.2-ton cargo carriers, painted olive drab, canvas covers lashed tight over their beds. They carry mortar shells packed in wooden crates, medical supplies wrapped in waxed paper, rations in tins stamped with production dates from factories in Ohio and Pennsylvania, and the .30 caliber ammunition that keeps the forward machine gun nests operational. Lose the convoy, and the line goes quiet within 72 hours. The math is simple. A machine gun crew burns through 200 rounds per engagement. Multiply that by the number of positions along a 4-mile front. Add the mortars, the rifles, the Browning automatic rifles that chew through magazines like hunger. Subtract what can be scavenged or rationed. The numbers don't lie. Without resupply, the 36th becomes a static line with no teeth. Italian forces know this. German advisors know this. The road is watched. The 36th has lost 2 supply runs in the past month. The first went down to mines. Buried charges detonated under the second truck in the column, blocking the road while the remaining vehicles sat exposed. The second loss was coordinated ambush. Small arms fire from both sides of a narrow pass, timed to hit the convoy when it was moving too fast to stop and too committed to turn back. 4 trucks burned, 18 men killed or wounded. Supplies scattered across 200 yards of ditch. After the second loss, Division Command tightened the rules. No forward reconnaissance beyond designated observation posts. No individual initiative that could compromise patrol schedules. No unauthorized use of unstable cover. The orders came down through battalion, through company, through platoon, typed on mimeographed sheets and read aloud during morning briefings. The logic was sound. Predictability creates vulnerability, but so does chaos. The system works when every part moves according to plan. The barn Rourke is hiding in was marked condemned in August. Shelling damaged its foundation. 2 impacts within 10 feet of the southeast corner, close enough to crack the stone footings and shift the load-bearing wall. Engineers tagged it with white paint, a diagonal slash across the doorframe. Universal symbol for structural compromise. It sits in a dead zone between American positions and the edge of no man's land. A place maps show but soldiers avoid. Too far forward for safety, too exposed for utility. The kind of terrain that exists in the gap between doctrine and reality. The system is designed to prevent exactly what Rourke is doing. A lone rifleman making field decisions without clearance. Without radio contact, without the layered oversight that keeps individual judgment from creating cascading failures. One man acts, the patrol schedule shifts. The enemy notices the pattern change, and suddenly the entire operational tempo is compromised. But the system doesn't account for the gap between doctrine and ground truth. Doctrine says the enemy won't flank through terrain that exposed. Ground truth says they already have. Doctrine says unstable structures are too dangerous for use. Ground truth says the barn gives Rourke the only sightline to the ambush position. Doctrine says wait for authorization. Ground truth says authorization takes time, and time is a resource the convoy doesn't have. The convoy is scheduled to roll at 1:15 p.m. It's 11:52 a.m. now. 23 minutes since Rourke first counted the shadows moving through the olive groves. The Italians are already in position. 2 men in the roadside ditch. 3 more behind a low stone wall. The rest spread along the tree line in a pattern Rourke recognizes from training manuals. Overlapping fields of fire, staggered withdrawal routes, clear lines of communication. They're not improvising. This is planned. The road is quiet. Dust hangs in the air. Somewhere behind Rourke, the 36th waits for supplies that haven't left Caserta yet. The trucks are being loaded now, crates stacked, canvas tied, engines checked. The drivers don't know the road has already been claimed. Rourke first notices the stillness. Olive groves along the valley floor should have birds. They don't. Not the small, brown sparrows that nest in the lower branches. Not the wood pigeons that move between the trees in the late morning, calling to each other in low, rhythmic notes. Nothing. Just leaves and shadow. The leaves hang motionless. No wind. But there's movement underneath. Not the kind that comes from air currents. Displacement. Human weight shifting through agricultural cover. He watches the tree line through his scope. The MY903 has iron sights, but Rourke requisitioned a Unertl 8X scope 3 months ago, a sniper variant pulled from a damaged rifle after Salerno. The glass is clean, the reticle steady. He scans left to right, slow, letting his eye adjust to the magnified field. A branch shifts, not much, just a small disturbance in the canopy, barely visible. The kind of motion that could be an animal, except it's not. The pattern is wrong. Animals move erratically. This is controlled. 30 seconds later, another shift. 60 yards farther east. He's seen this before. Infantry using agricultural cover to advance without breaking the canopy line. Standard doctrine for movement through observed terrain. Stay low. Use natural concealment. Don't silhouette against the skyline. Move in intervals. Let the man ahead settle before you advance. They're good. Disciplined. They don't bunch up. Every man keeps interval. 10 to 15 yards between positions. Far enough that a single grenade won't take 2 men. Close enough to maintain visual contact. Rourke counts 18 distinct positions over 8 minutes of observation. He marks each one mentally. 3 near the stone wall, 4 in the drainage ditch, 2 behind a cluster of wild grass. The rest scattered along the tree line in a loose crescent. No radios visible, which means they're operating under light protocol. Fast movement, pre-coordinated. They briefed this before they left. They know where they're going. They know what they're doing. They're not scouting. They're setting up. One soldier kneels near a stone wall, 70 yards from the road. He's adjusting something Rourke can't see clearly through the scope. The man's hands move in the small, precise gestures. Could be a tripod. Could be a sighting marker. Could be a Breda M37 machine gun. Italian 8mm, belt-fed, effective range 800 yards. The angle is perfect for enfilading fire on the road. Anyone driving through that stretch will be exposed for a full 30 seconds. No cover, no escape. Another group moves closer to a drainage culvert. Concrete tube, maybe 3 feet wide, set into the embankment where runoff drains from the upper slope. Ideal for a secondary position. Low profile, clear sightline, hard to suppress without direct fire. Rourke's hands are steady. They always are. But his jaw tightens, small muscle contraction just below the ear. He notices it, forces it to relax. He does the math. The Italians are 8 minutes away from being fully set, maybe 10 if they're cautious. By 1 p.m. they'll be in place. Guns sighted. Fields of fire overlapping. Withdrawal routes confirmed. The convoy is scheduled to roll at 1:15 p.m. 15 minutes after the ambush is ready. The trucks will come around the bend, doing maybe 20 miles per hour. Slow enough to navigate the turns. Fast enough that stopping takes distance. The lead driver won't see the Italians until he's past the stone wall. By then, the machine gun will already be firing. The second truck will try to brake. The third will hit it from behind or swerve into the ditch. No time to reverse. The road is too narrow. One lane, barely wide enough for 2 trucks to pass. Stone walls on both sides, drainage culvert on the south, embankment on the north. The math is clean and ugly. 6 trucks enter, maybe 2 make it out. The rest burn where they stop. Supplies scattered, men dead or dying. The 36th goes without resupply for another 48 hours. Machine gun nests ration ammunition. Mortar crews hold fire. The line weakens, all because 18 men read a map and chose the right stretch of road. Rourke lowers the scope slightly. His thumb rubs the walnut stock. The wood is warm now, heated by his hand. The Italians keep moving. Rourke knows the protocol. Spot enemy movement. Withdraw to your unit. Report through the chain of command. Let intelligence confirm. Let officers coordinate. Let the system process the information and produce a response calibrated to the threat level and operational priorities. The protocol exists for a reason. Lone soldiers make mistakes. They misidentify friendlies. They waste ammunition on targets that don't matter. They break operational security by firing from positions that reveal patrol patterns. Individual judgment, however well-intentioned, introduces variables the system can't predict. And unpredictable variables break the machine. Rourke has never disobeyed an order. Not once. Not in basic training. Not in North Africa. Not in Sicily. When his platoon sergeant told him to dig in, he dug. When the lieutenant said hold position, he held. The system worked because every man trusted it enough to follow it. But he also knows the timing. It's 12:03 p.m. now. The convoy leaves Caserta in 72 minutes. Even if he runs now, if he leaves the rifle, abandons the position, and sprints the 200 yards back to the 36th's forward line, his report will take time to process. He'll reach his platoon sergeant. The sergeant will reach the lieutenant. The lieutenant will reach battalion headquarters. 10 minutes. Maybe 15 if the radio net is busy. Then comes confirmation. The intelligence officer will want verification, independent observation, a second pair of eyes. They'll reassign a patrol to the area, 2 men, maybe 3, with binoculars and a field radio. The patrol will move carefully. They won't use the condemned barn. They'll find another position, farther back, with less exposure. They'll observe, confirm enemy presence, estimate numbers, report back. Another 20 minutes, maybe 30. Then comes consultation. The battalion commander will weigh options. Artillery strike? Possible, but the Italians are close to the tree line, and shelling that area risks collateral damage to civilian structures still standing farther east. Redirect the convoy? Possible, but alternate routes add hours, and the 36th needs resupply tonight, not tomorrow. Send an infantry squad to clear the ambush? Possible, but that pulls men from the line and alerts the enemy to American awareness. Another 15 minutes to decide. Another 30 to execute. By the time any response is authorized, the Italians will either be fully entrenched or the convoy will already be moving. The math doesn't care about doctrine. It only cares about time and distance. The barn is unauthorized, yes, condemned, unsafe, a violation of standing orders. But it also gives Rourke a firing position no one else has. 300 yards from the ambush zone. elevated 12 feet above the valley floor. Sight line that covers the entire kill zone from the stone wall to the drainage culvert. No one else is here. No one else sees what he sees. He thinks about his father. A conversation from years ago, back in Scranton, inside the railroad maintenance shed that smelled like grease and coal dust. Rourke had asked why his father sometimes ignored the manufacturer's manual when repairing turbines. His father had looked at him, wiped his hands on a rag, and said something Rourke never forgot. Good mechanics don't follow manuals when the manual is wrong. They follow the machine. The machine right now is 18 men, 1 road and 1 rifle. Rourke exhales slowly. His breath doesn't fog anymore. The air has warmed slightly. He shifts his weight, feeling the barn floor creak beneath him. Dust falls from the broken rafters. The M19903 rests across his knees, familiar and heavy. He pulls the bolt back. Metal slides against metal. Smooth, no resistance. He checks the chamber. Empty, clean. He reaches for the ammunition pouch at his hip, pulls out a 5-round stripper clip, and loads it. The rounds slide into the internal magazine with a soft click. He chambers the first round. The bolt locks forward. The rifle is ready. The choice isn't emotional. It's operational. The system can't adapt fast enough. The protocol assumes time that doesn't exist. The machine is about to break, and Rourke is the only part positioned to stop it. He brings the scope back to his eye. The Italians are still moving into position. The first shot breaks at 12:11 p.m. Rourke has the crosshairs on the soldier near the stone wall, the one who's been kneeling for the past 4 minutes, adjusting something on the ground. Rourke's breathing is steady. He exhales halfway, holds, squeezes. The M1903 kicks. The recoil travels through his shoulder, solid and familiar. 300 yards downrange, the man drops. Silence for 3 seconds. Then chaos ripples through the olive grove. The Italians scatter. Some drop flat. Others sprint for deeper cover. They're shooting back, but the fire is wild, undirected. They can't locate him. The muzzle flash was hidden by shadow and the barn's angled wreckage. The sun is high and behind him. They're looking into glare. Rourke works the bolt. The spent casing ejects, tumbling through the air, landing somewhere in the rubble with a faint metallic clink. He chambers another round, smooth, automatic. The motion feels like breathing. He finds another target, a soldier running toward the drainage culvert. Rourke leads him slightly, fires. The man goes down. Now they're shooting back in earnest, but their fire is dispersed. Panicked. Rounds snap through the air above the barn. Some hit the stone walls with sharp cracks. Others punch through the rotten wood of the remaining roof beams. Splinters fall. Dust rises. Rourke stays methodical. He doesn't aim for kills necessarily. He aims to disrupt. A round through a soldier's leg forces 2 others to drag him back toward the tree line. A shot into the dirt, 3 feet from a machine gun position, makes them abandon it, relocating farther east where the angle is worse. Another round through the canvas pack of a soldier carrying ammunition. The pack explodes in a cloud of white powder and torn fabric. He's not trying to win. He's trying to delay. Every minute they're pinned or disorganized is a minute closer to 1:15 p.m. The convoy will pass through the kill zone then, or it won't if Rourke is wrong. If the Italians regroup faster than he can suppress them. If his ammunition runs out. If the barn collapses. If return fire finds him. But for now, he keeps shooting. Rourke fires 18 times in the first 10 minutes. Each shot is deliberate. each target chosen for maximum disruption. He's not counting kills. He's counting effects. Men retreating. Equipment abandoned. Formation broken. The barn shudders with each recoil. The floor beneath him creaks. Dust falls from the rafters in thin streams, catching the light like smoke. He hears return fire punching through rotten wood behind him, sharp impacts that send splinters spinning into the air. One round passes close enough that he feels the displacement of air against his face, but the structure holds. The stone walls are thick, 18th century construction, built to last. The wood is compromised, yes, but the load-bearing elements are still functional. The barn sways slightly with each impact, but it doesn't collapse. Rourke reloads. His fingers move without thought. Strip or clip into the magazine. 5 rounds. Push down. Strip the clip away. Chamber the first round. The bolt locks forward. He brings the scope back to his eye. The Italians are adapting. They're no longer shooting blind. They've identified the general direction of his fire, the condemned barn on the hillside. Some are working their way around the flanks, trying to get an angle on him. Others are laying down suppressive fire, keeping him from taking careful shots, but they're also pulling back. By 12:29 p.m., the Italian force has withdrawn into deeper cover. They're no longer in ambush formation. The machine gun that was positioned near the stone wall is gone. The soldiers who were waiting in the drainage culvert have moved back into the olive groves. The ones who were spread along the tree line in overlapping fields of fire are now clustered in defensive positions, focused on the barn. They're no longer hunting the convoy. They're defending themselves. Rourke ejects the spent casing. It joins the others on the barn floor, a scattered pile of brass catching the light. He loads another round. The bolt slides forward with a metallic click, and then he waits. The valley is quieter now. Sporadic rifle fire, the rustle of movement through the olive trees. Somewhere far behind him, American voices call out. His platoon has heard the shooting. They'll be moving up soon, investigating, wondering who fired without authorization. But the road below is empty, clear. The convoy will roll in 46 minutes. At 1:18 p.m., Rourke hears the engines. Diesel growl, low and mechanical. The sound echoes off the valley walls, bouncing between the hillsides before it reaches him. He knows that sound. GMC CKW, 6-cylinder engine. The convoy. He brings the scope back to his eye one last time. 6 trucks, moving at cautious speed, maybe 15 miles per hour. Slower than usual. The lead driver is being careful. The road is narrow here, and word has probably reached him about the previous ambushes. He's watching the tree line, his hands tight on the wheel. The trucks roll past the section of road where the Italians were positioned. No contact, no gunfire, no eruption of violence, just the steady rumble of engines and the crunch of tires on gravel. The convoy doesn't even slow down. The drivers have no idea. The soldiers in the truck beds, 20, maybe 30 men sitting on crates of ammunition and medical supplies, have no idea. Rourke counts them as they pass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The last truck disappears around the ridge. The sound of engines fades, then nothing. Just wind moving through the olive trees and the faint creak of the barn settling behind him. Radio static crackles somewhere in the distance. Behind him, farther up the slope. He hears voices, American, shouting coordinates. A patrol is moving up to investigate the firefight. They heard the shooting. They're coming to see what happened. Rourke lowers the rifle. His hands are steady. No tremor, No adrenaline crash. Just the same mechanical calm he's carried since he first picked up the weapon. He checks the chamber. Empty. He ejects the magazine, counts the remaining rounds by feel. 12 left. He slips out of the barn through the collapsed rear wall. The stone has crumbled there, leaving a gap wide enough to crawl through. He moves low through the rubble, keeping his silhouette below the sightline. Dust clings to his uniform. His knees scrape against broken masonry. 20 yards out, he reaches the tree line. He moves through it quickly, angling back toward the 36th's forward positions. The ground is uneven. He keeps his weight forward, stepping carefully to avoid snapping branches. He rejoins his squad 20 minutes later, dirt-streaked, breathing hard, his rifle slung across his back. He approaches the platoon sergeant's position, a shallow trench dug into the hillside, reinforced with sandbags and covered with a canvas tarp. The sergeant looks up, sees Rourke, says nothing for a moment. Then, "Where the hell were you?" Rourke doesn't answer. He just nods toward the valley. The sergeant follows his gaze, then looks back at Rourke. Something unspoken passes between them. The sergeant doesn't ask again. No one else asks either. Later that evening, intelligence reports filter down through battalion. Typed on thin paper, distributed to company commanders, read aloud during evening briefings. The language is bureaucratic, clinical. Skirmish activity reported near Supply Route Amber at approximately 1210 hours. Probable Italian reconnaissance element, engaged and dispersed by unknown fire. Origin of fire unconfirmed. Possibly artillery or long-range patrol. Enemy forces withdrew northeast into wooded terrain. No American casualties. Convoy passed through sector at 1318 hours. Arrived intact, no contact. The report mentions ammunition count. 60 rounds expended. Origin unconfirmed. It doesn't mention a barn. It doesn't mention a rifleman. It doesn't mention the 18 Italian soldiers who were 30 seconds away from a perfect ambush when the first shot broke the silence. The trucks rolled through. The supplies reached the 36th. The machine gun nests stayed operational. The line held, and somewhere in a field notebook, buried in the administrative noise of 1,000 small engagements, a single entry notes the structural collapse of a condemned barn near Monte Cassino, cause unknown, probably shelling or age-related deterioration. The system kept moving. The gears turned. The supply line held. And no one knew why. 3 days later, Rourke is called to battalion headquarters. It's a farmhouse 2 miles behind the line. Stone walls, red tile roof. The kind of building that survived centuries before the war and will probably survive centuries after. Inside, the rooms have been converted into offices. Field desks, radio equipment, maps pinned to walls with thumbtacks. A Captain Rourke has never met sits across a field table covered in maps. Topographical charts of the Monte Cassino area. Supply routes marked in red grease pencil. Enemy positions circled in blue. The captain doesn't look angry. He looks tired. There are dark circles under his eyes. His uniform is clean but worn. He's been in Italy since the landings. Rourke can tell by the way he moves. Economical, efficient, no wasted motion. The captain looks at Rourke for a long moment. Then he says, "You were in the condemned barn." It's not a question. Rourke nods. The captain taps a pencil against the map. The sound is rhythmic, quiet. He doesn't look at Rourke. He looks at the map, at the small circle marking the barn's location, at Supply Route Amber, running through the valley below. He says, You fired 60 rounds without authorization, from an unsecured position, using ammunition logged to your squad. Rourke says nothing. There's nothing to say. The captain already knows. The ammunition count was reported. The spent casings were found. The patrol that investigated the barn, 3 hours after the firefight, saw the brass scattered on the floor. They counted. They reported up the chain. The captain sighs. He sets the pencil down, leans back in his chair. The wood creaks. He says, "The convoy made it through. Intelligence estimates you disrupted a coordinated ambush. Probably saved 20 men and 6 trucks worth of supplies. Medical equipment, mortar shells, small arms ammunition. The kind of supplies we can't afford to lose. Officially, this conversation didn't happen. Unofficially, don't do it again. No commendation, no written record, no medal pinned to his uniform, no mention in the company log. Just acknowledgement, recognition without reward. The system can't endorse what Rourke did, can't encourage soldiers to break protocol, occupy condemned structures, fire without orders. But it also can't ignore that the convoy arrived intact. Rourke stands, salutes. The captain returns it. Neither man says anything else. Rourke is reassigned to a different sector the following week. A routine rotation. Nothing unusual. His platoon moves north, toward the next phase of the Italian campaign. The barn becomes someone else's problem. The barn is demolished by engineers on September 22nd. Scheduled destruction. Unrelated to the incident. The structure was marked condemned in August. The engineers were always going to take it down. They use explosives, controlled charges placed at the base of the remaining walls. The barn collapses in a cloud of dust and broken stone. By evening, the rubble has been cleared. The site is empty. Rourke's service record shows standard infantry duty. Rifleman, 36th Infantry Division. Italy, 1943, 1944. No decorations, no Purple Heart, no Bronze Star, just dates and locations. Salerno, Monte Cassino, Anzio. The paperwork is thorough and completely unremarkable. He writes home on September 25th. The letter is 2 pages. His handwriting is neat, precise. He mentions the rain, steady drizzle that turns the roads to mud. He mentions the quality of Italian tobacco, harsh but better than nothing. He mentions a village they passed through where children waved from windows. He doesn't mention the barn. He doesn't mention the convoy. He doesn't mention the choice he made in the rubble with a rifle and 60 rounds and 18 minutes to decide. His mother saves the letter in a shoebox with all the others. Years later, after Rourke comes home, after he goes back to work in the railroad yards in Scranton, after he marries and has children and grows old, she'll show him the box. He'll read the letters. He won't remember writing most of them. Decades later, a historian researching the Italian campaign will find the ammunition expenditure report in the National Archives. A single line item. 60 rounds, 3006 Springfield, September 14, 1943. Location, Monte Cassino sector. Origin, unconfirmed. The historian will cross-reference it with patrol logs, intelligence reports, casualty records. Nothing matches. No engagement reported at that location. No artillery strike. No patrol activity. Just 60 rounds fired from a position that officially didn't exist. The historian will make a note. File it under unsolved discrepancies. Move on. The machine kept its secrets. Wars are remembered through medals and monuments. Bronze stars pinned to uniforms. Names carved into stone. Speeches delivered at anniversaries. The narratives are clean. Heroes and villains. Victories and defeats. Dates that matter. But wars are won in moments no one records. The convoy that rolled through Monte Cassino on September 14, 1943, doesn't appear in the official history of the Italian campaign. The 6 trucks that delivered ammunition and medical supplies to the 36th Infantry Division are listed in a logistics manifest filed in Washington. Column of numbers, tonnage delivered, route taken, time of arrival. Nothing about what didn't happen. Nothing about the ambush that never occurred. Rourke understood something essential. Something his father taught him in a railroad maintenance shed in Scranton years before the war. Systems, no matter how well designed, can't account for every variable. A turbine is built to handle specific pressures at specific temperatures. The engineers calculate tolerances. They build in safety margins. But sometimes the pressure exceeds the design. Sometimes the variable falls outside the expected range. And when that happens, the system either adapts or it breaks. Military doctrine exists for the same reason mechanical tolerances exist: to create predictability, to ensure that when 1,000 moving parts interact, they do so in ways that can be planned for, prepared for, controlled. The doctrine says, stay within your assigned position. Report through proper channels. Let the system process the information and generate a response. The doctrine is correct 99% of the time. But that last 1%, the gap between what should happen and what does happen, is where wars are lost or won. Sometimes the most dangerous thing a soldier can do is exactly what he's trained to do. Follow protocol. Wait for orders. Trust the chain of command. And sometimes the safest thing is what's forbidden. Break cover. Occupy condemned structures. Fire without authorization. Rourke didn't choose defiance. He chose function. The barn is gone now. Demolished 79 years ago. The rubble cleared. The site empty. The valley road is paved. Civilian traffic, cars and motorcycles. Tourists driving through on their way to Rome, unaware of the history beneath the asphalt. Supply route Amber no longer appears on maps. The designation was retired after the war. The road has a different name now. An Italian name. Local. But the logic remains. Somewhere, in every conflict, there's a soldier who counts the shadows, who sees the pattern before it completes, who runs the math and realizes the system can't adapt fast enough. A mechanic's son, a farmer's daughter, someone trained to see machines as logic problems, someone who understands that input creates output, and when the input changes, the output must change too. They make a calculation the manual didn't prepare them for. Not out of glory, not out of rebellion, out of function. Because the machine is about to break, and they're the only part positioned to stop it. The question isn't whether Rourke was right. Right and wrong are categories for peacetime. When there's time to deliberate, time to consult, time to weigh options against doctrine. In war, there's only function and failure. The system works, or it doesn't. The convoy arrives, or it burns. The question is whether you'd have trusted the system or the math. The convoy rolled through. 6 trucks, 20 men in the beds, crates of mortar shells and medical supplies and .30 caliber ammunition. They passed the stone wall at 1:18 p.m. They passed the drainage culvert. They passed the spot where 18 Italian soldiers had been setting up a machine gun 40 minutes earlier. They never knew. 60 rounds, 18 men. One barn that wasn't supposed to exist. The math worked. Daniel Rourke returned to Scranton in 1945. He went back to the railroad yards. He repaired turbines. He married. He had children. He grew old. He died in 1987. His obituary mentioned his military service. Italy, 1943-1944. It didn't mention the barn. No one remembers his name. But somewhere in the National Archives, filed under ammunition expenditure reports, there's a line item that doesn't match any official engagement. 60 rounds. Origin unconfirmed. A small discrepancy in the machine. A gap in the system. The kind of gap that keeps the gears turning. Would you have pulled the trigger?